All right.
Yeah.
So
You got one?
I do. I'm going to bring this back to the Flames here. I know this is going to be.
Oh, let's do it.
This is the
Everything's Flames.
This is the Desert Flames hockey podcast right now.
Hell yeah.
All right, so I'm going to name off some names here. Obviously, you're going to know where I'm going with this. And I got to ask you about Huberdeau because I like Huberdeau, but I'm going to throw names out here and tell me if he's in the same company as these names. So obviously he's not being paid that $10.5 million this year. It'll be next year, but I'm just going to name off the players that are currently the highest cap hits in the NHL. So first is Connor McDavid at 12.5. Second,
never heard of him.
Yeah, who knows who that guy is?
I've never heard of that guy before.
You know what's crazy is like I feel like he's like 30 with how he looks, but he's only 25.
He's not aged very well. That's what 8 years.
What's up, God numbers?
That's what 8 years of living in Edmonton will do to you, folks.
That's what 3 years living in Edmonton will do to you. He just double dipped.
He just does. Yeah, pretty much.
So second is Panarin at 30. He is 11.6 million. Matthews is third with 11.6 million. Fourth is Erik Karlsson. Oh my God, 11.5. Number 5 is Drew Doughty at 11 million. Number 6 is John Tavares at 11 million. Number 7 is Mitch Marner at 10.9 million. And then tied for the contracts that Huberdeau is being paid is 4 players, which is Jonathan Toews, Carey Price, Patrick Kane, and obviously Huberdeau next year. Do you think he is in good company there in the sense that he can outperform some of those players on that list?
Your argument fell apart as soon as you mentioned Karlsson and Doughty. Like I was
going to say,
true.
I have to throw that out.
True.
Those were worse contracts when they were signed too.
Yeah.
Because the cap hit or the cap was not where. I mean, not that the cap's like anything fantastic now, but like. Yeah, okay, so let's talk about that contract because I knew that was gonna come up.
Yeah.
I am okay with it on so many different levels. Calgary has notoriously been known as this place where people come but nobody wants to stay. And I don't know how it built this reputation. I'm not sure if you guys have ever been to Calgary. It is, and I've lived in a lot of places in Canada, it is by far the nicest place I've ever lived in my life. And I will probably never ever leave. And the city is incredible.
I have friends.
No, go ahead.
I have friends who live in Calgary, and they've vlogged, and they were like just walking around. It was like some convention. This was before the pandemic, and it was just like, wow, that city is beautiful. Like it is really clean and well kept, and yeah.
Yeah, and you're so close to the Rockies too. On a nice day, like if I look out my front porch on a nice day, I can see the Rocky Mountains, and like I'm a 45-minute drive from being in the mountains. It's just I don't know.
So what you're telling me is you need to find all the Brent Burns in the league. That'll keep them around.
all the bushwhackers, yeah, all those guys. But like it's grown this name that like nobody wants to stay in Calgary, and it was Gaudreau, it was Tkachuk who wants to leave, and players. Obviously, Ginla stayed here for a long time, but eventually he wanted to leave too and go pursue a cup. And it was nothing to do with the city. That was just strictly him trying to finish his career on a high note, which people understand.
Yeah.
But Calgary has a very hard time with retention of superstars or retention of stars. So acquiring Huberdeau in that trade, was great. And everybody was like, okay, this will be a big win if he stays, because nobody ever stays in Calgary. Mm-hmm. We always acquire the 1-year Kawhi Leonard guys and they leave. Yeah. They go somewhere else, right? So I'm okay with it. He put up 115 points last year. He's defensively a better player than Johnny Gaudreau. So I was okay with the Flames giving him the same money that they were going to give Johnny Gaudreau. Now, Johnny Gaudreau had a fantastic defensive season last year, better than he's ever had in his career. His two-way game was at an all-time high.
Yeah.
And that's because of a full year under Daryl Sutter. I am so excited to see what Daryl Sutter can do to Jonathan Huberdeau to make him a better defense. Not that he's like he's not a defensive specialist by any stretch.
Yeah.
But he's a better, outside of a Daryl Sutter system, he's a better two-way player than Johnny Gaudreau was outside of his Daryl Sutter system. So that $10.5 million it's a lot of money, and the cap's going to go up. So I'm not even worried about it. By the time we're in the middle of that contract, the salary cap will be, higher than it is now, and the Flames won't be paying after this season we talked about it. Monahan and Lucic are combining for like $12 million to the salary cap. They're not going to be making that money. So the Flames are going to be in an okay position when it comes to having to re-sign guys like Lindholm and such down the line. I'm okay with it because it means he's staying. The Flames and commitment from stars, like I mentioned before, has been something that just hasn't been a perfect marriage. So the fact that somebody of that caliber hasn't even played a game in Calgary, hasn't even been to Calgary yet since he's been traded, and hasn't been to the city, hasn't done, all of his media availabilities have been via Zoom so far. And he put pen to paper for 8 years. I know the money's a lot, but he's going to stay in Calgary for 8 years when he could have went anywhere else he wanted to after this season. It means a lot, and I'm cool with it. I don't know. What, from the outside looking in, I want to know, what do you guys think? Because sure, maybe I have the Flames goggles on, and I'm gonna make every situation in Calgary land look perfect. But like, what do you think from the outside looking in?
So for me, I would say that it's a little rich, and the reason I argued was because currently he's not very defensively responsible. He's very deficient in the defensive zone, but that was under the Panthers. And you bringing up Daryl Sutter is a very good point. I never thought about that, and he's fast enough to be a two-way player, and he's smart, right?
For sure.
Like you can, those smart guys can figure it out really easy. So saying that, I was like, actually, that's a really good point. I'm still hesitant because I want to see him under Daryl Sutter and see how he does defensively. If he can be a very respectable two-way guy, I think it's absolutely worth it. It shows to your market that you got a guy, and you're gonna have him for 8 years, and then also, oh goodness, there was another point I was gonna say. I'm gonna have to throw it away. Matt, you got something? Because
I do actually. So, I don't think the money is the problem at all. I think that's fair market value, especially he's mostly 25 to 30 goal scorer. That's good around the league, but also he in 80 games, so he missed a couple of games, had more than 82 assists. So he was above an assist per game player while playing 82. Then you take
also
off
playing with Sam Bennett and Anthony Duclair. Like he played with, he turned Sam Bennett into a 25 goal scorer.
Yeah.
He picked up Calgary spare parts and said, "Here, I'll make you a superstar. Or I'll make you a star." He's going to be playing with Elias Lindholm. He's going to be playing with a goal scorer.
So
I don't know.
The money, I think, is fair market value. That was never my problem. My problem is it starts when he's 30 and it's 8 years, and we see it all the time in the NHL, and I will always throw my pot shots because I don't understand why GMs, we constantly see, oh, we have to move this contract. This contract's terrible. If Lucic signed for 2 less years, would his contract still have been terrible? It would have been bad, but would it have been like as bad as it is? If Cassian signs for a year less, Louis Eriksson signs for a year or 2 less, are these contracts anywhere near as bad? So I'm looking at this like, he's great right now. When the contract starts from 30 to 33, that's usually the tail end of your prime, he'd probably still be easily worth $10.5 million. But then you have another 5 years on top of that. I know you're not concerned about the cap, but the problem is it's also based on league revenues, and they can go up and down. They were really up this year. It's a really good sign. Yeah. But we still have the basic of a 37-year-old, 38-year-old is going to be getting paid 10.5, and the statistical likelihood he is going to be worth that 10.5 cap hit is, I would say, just a statistic pulled directly from my anus here, about 8.5%, because it gets lower and lower, like being able to be worth that much. So that is my concern, is the length, not the number. The number is I think fair. He probably could have got a little more on the open market, so that's fair. But I think if it would have capped off at no more than 6, I wouldn't have many complaints.
Put all this. Okay, so let's just say right now you're a Flames fan now. You say, screw the Coyotes, I want to go cheer for a real team. I'm a Flames fan now. That was a drive-by. That was not necessary. I'm sorry. I apologize for that.
No, it's all right. That's pretty tame for shots taken at a Coyotes fan. So
I could see so, yeah. Okay, so listen here then. If you're a Flames fan, if the Flames win a cup in the next 3 or 4 years, does the contract matter? Does the tail end of
No.
that deal matter if he helps
No.
bring a cup to Calgary?
If you
My answer is
Theoretically, it
hell
should
no.
yeah,
It's like theoretically it should not. The thing is, I've been alive for championships. I've never watched the championships. So I never got that feeling.
Mhm.
Theoretically, it should not because you got your cup.
mm-hmm.
But I'm used to the failure aspect. I'm used to never reaching that potential. That it's equally as valid to ask if they don't win that cup, does the contract end up looking worse? Because it's even if they do win that cup, let's say again, it's still a 6-year contract, so you shave a couple years off, they still win that cup. Does it not look that much better? Because it's just to me, it's foresight. It's just
Oh, for
great
sure.
player. But when you hit 30, and some players can defy the aging process. I know Jaromir Jagr was ridiculously good for far too long. That
Forever a
man
flame.
is a treasure, forever a flame, and forever a Robo Penguin because that logo
Yes.
is phenomenal. I love that logo. Bring
Absolutely.
it back. But it's just that lack of foresight, and it's nothing against the player. It's nothing in that aspect. It's just I've seen enough. Hey, we're trying to trade this dead contract for over a decade, where it's like, why do you keep adding on those extra couple of years? That's just my one thing. But theoretically, since I don't have personal experience, it should not or probably would not matter if they win that cup in the next 3 years.
For sure. And it's just it seems like maybe a silly argument, but it's like I don't know. I understand it like from and it's a market thing too. Like I said about superstars and stars leaving this market, you have to pay to keep players here. The Flames are going to be in a completely different position 4 years from now with everybody except for him and Rasmus Andersson off the books. So it's going to be, it's a foresight thing too there, right? Where it's like, you just don't really know yet. It's hard to gauge, but I'm okay with it. I know a lot of Flames fans are okay with it, and everybody outside of the market just hates it because they're like, "Oh, this is an overpay. The Flames suck," especially all those dummies up the QE2 in Edmonton. they're the same way, but
I mean, they heard that with Draisaitl when that contract was first signed too. Like.
And that's what they're comparing it to. They're all comparing it to. They're all comparing. Oh well, Draisaitl makes it. Yeah, Draisaitl's underpaid.
Yeah, well, at the time he wasn't.
Doesn't make enough money. Yeah, now he's underpaid, but at the time it was like it was the same thing.
Yeah, the thing I'll say is like, would you deal with 4 years of a bad contract but a Stanley Cup, or would you deal with 30 plus years of no Stanley Cup like the Coyotes, like Vancouver, like Toronto, like? I would take that bet 4 bad years.
Taking that cup
every single day, every day.
So comfortable with losing. It's like comfort food. It's like, oh, the Coyotes lost again tonight. I feel safe and secure.